The stars looked different through Corvani eyes. Where humans saw points of light in an endless dark, the Corvani saw a map of conquest. Each star system marked another victory, another world brought under their rule. Commander Taimin stood, on the bridge of his massive warship, watching the blue planet called Earth grow larger on his screens. Earth looked so small, so weak. The humans living there had no idea what was coming for them. Taimin touched the wall of his ship with one clawed hand. The wall felt warm and alive under his touch. This was not metal like the primitive ships other races built. This was living armor, grown from crystal organisms that had taken the Corvani 3,000 years to perfect. The crystalline surface pulsed with a soft inner light, beautiful and deadly at the same time. Admiral Hyun Woo, Taimin called to his second-in-command. "How long until we reach their outer defenses?" Hyun Woo checked his instruments. His 4 eyes moved independently as he read the data. 6 hours, Commander. Their ships are already moving to meet us, but they are slow and clumsy. Taimin made a sound like laughter. Every race said the same thing when they first saw Corvani. Ships approaching. They would try to fight. They always tried to fight. It never mattered. The living armor made them impossible to kill. Other races built ships from dead metal and plastic. They welded plates together and hoped their armor would hold when enemy weapons hit them. The Corvani had learned long ago that dead armor was weak armor. Living armor was different. Living armor could think. It could learn. It could grow stronger every time it was attacked. Taimin had seen it happen 847 times before. Enemy ships would fire their best weapons. Lasers would hit the crystalline hull and simply disappear, absorbed into the living crystal matrix. Missiles would explode harmlessly against surfaces that bent and flexed like skin. Kinetic weapons, metal slugs fired at incredible speed, would bounce off like pebbles thrown at a mountain, and then the armor would learn. The next laser that hit the same spot would be absorbed even faster. The crystal would grow thicker where missiles had struck. Impact points would become harder and stronger. By the end of most battles, Corvani ships emerged without a scratch. Their living armor had adapted to every weapon fired at it. The enemy ships would be floating debris, and another world would belong to the Empire. "Sir," called Operator Jin Soo from the communication station. "We are receiving transmissions from the human world." "What do they want?" Taimin asked, though he already knew. "They wish to negotiate. They offer to surrender if we spare their civilian population." Taimin walked to the large viewing screen that showed Earth growing closer. Such a pretty planet. Blue oceans and white clouds, green continents. It would make a good addition to the Empire after they removed most of the humans. "Send the standard response," he ordered. The standard response was simple. Submit completely or be destroyed. Allow Corvani colonists to take the best land and resources. Accept Corvani governors and laws. Provide workers for Corvani factories and farms. Those who cooperated would live as servants. Those who resisted would die. Most species chose to live as servants. Taimin studied the approaching human ships on his tactical display. 43 vessels, all made of crude metal and ceramic composites. Their largest ship was barely 1/10 the size of his smallest destroyer. Their weapons were primitive. Chemical explosives, simple lasers, and crude railguns that threw metal projectiles. How did such a weak race even achieve spaceflight, wondered Admiral Hyun-woo. "Luck," Taimin replied. "Pure luck. They found some wreckage from an old battlefield and copied the technology without understanding it. Many primitive races do this. The Corvani had fought races with much better technology than the humans. They had faced energy beings that could manipulate matter with thought. They had battled machines that could rebuild themselves faster than they could be destroyed. They had conquered species that could bend space and time. All of them had fallen before the living armor. "Sir, the human ships are forming a defensive line around their 4th planet," reported Tactical Officer Bora. Taimin looked at the formation and shook his head. The humans had spread their ships in a wide arc, trying to protect multiple approach routes. It was a classic mistake that young races always made. They thought they could stop a superior force by spreading out and covering more space. "They do not understand," he said to Hyun-woo. We do not need to go around them, we go through them. The Admiral nodded. Shall I give the order to charge the main weapons? Not yet. Let them fire first. Let the armor learn what their weapons can do. Then we will show them what real weapons look like. This was how Corvani battles always began. They would let the enemy attack first, allowing their living armor to analyze and adapt to every weapon type. The crystal organisms would taste the energy signatures, feel the impact patterns, and learn how to defend against each threat. Within minutes, the armor would be completely immune to everything the enemy could throw at them. Then the real battle would begin. Corvani weapons were designed to punch through the strongest known armor types. Against primitive human ships, they would be like hammers striking eggshells. The bridge grew quiet as they approached the human defense line. Crew members checked their stations one final time. The living armor began to glow brighter as it sensed the approaching battle. The crystal organisms were eager to learn about new weapons, to grow stronger from the experience. Human ships are powering up their weapons, reported Bora. All ships maintain formation, Taman broadcast to his fleet. Let them waste their ammunition on our hulls. Each shot they fire makes us stronger. Through the viewing screen, he could see the human ships clearly now. Small, angular vessels covered in metal plates and sensor arrays. Some had large rotating sections, artificial gravity systems for species too weak to adapt to zero-G environments. Others had complex radiator fins to dump waste heat, inefficient power systems that would fail in prolonged combat. Everything about the human ships screamed weakness and primitive technology. Commander, Hyunwoo said quietly. Something is strange about their formation. Taman looked at the tactical display again. The human ships were indeed positioned oddly. Instead of creating overlapping fields of fire like most races did, they seemed spread out almost randomly. Some ships were pointing away from the Corvani fleet entirely. Probably running sensor sweeps, Taman decided. Gathering intelligence before they die. It will not help them. The first human ship opened fire. Captain Da-un gripped the arms of her command chair as the alien ships grew larger on the main screen. The Corvani vessels looked like floating crystals, their surfaces catching and reflecting the light from Earth's sun. Beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Ma'am, we're receiving updated orders from Fleet Command, reported Communications Officer Sung-ho. Put it on speaker, Da-un ordered. Admiral Park's voice filled the bridge of the Incheon's Pride. All ships, this is your final briefing. We know we cannot win this battle. Our weapons are not strong enough. Our armor is not thick enough, but we can learn. Every shot you fire, every reading you take, every second you stay alive gives Earth more time to prepare. Da-un had served in the Korean Space Navy for 15 years. She had fought pirates in the asteroid belt and explored dead worlds beyond Pluto. But she had never faced anything like this. The Corvani Empire had conquered nearly 1,000 worlds. Their technology was beyond human understanding. Dr. Min-ho, what can you tell us about their armor? She asked the science officer. Dr. Min-ho looked up from his instruments. His face was pale but determined. It appears to be some kind of living crystal, Captain. My scans show organic compounds mixed with mineral structures. It seems to respond to external stimuli by changing its molecular composition. In simple terms, Doctor, it learns from being attacked. Every time we hit it, it gets better at stopping that type of attack. Lieutenant So-young turned from the tactical station. Captain, the lead alien ship is 3 times the size of our biggest battleship. Their weapons are charging up. Da-un nodded. She had read all the intelligence reports. 16 other species had fought the Corvani. 16 species had been conquered. Each time the pattern was the same. The aliens would let their enemies attack first, learn from the weapons fired at them, then destroy everything in sight. All weapons prepare to fire, she ordered. Target the lead ship's bridge section. Ma'am? Called Engineer Dong-hyun from the damage control station. All sensors are recording. We'll transmit everything back to Earth Command in real time. That was the plan. Fight as long as possible while gathering every piece of data they could. Earth's scientists needed to understand how the alien armor worked. Maybe if they were very lucky and very smart, they could find a weakness. Fire, Da-un commanded. The Inchin's pride shuddered as its main railgun fired a tungsten slug. At 10% the speed of light, the projectile crossed the distance between ships in less than a second and struck the alien vessel's hull. The impact looked like a firefly hitting a window. The crystalline armor flashed with light where the slug hit, then returned to its normal glow. No damage. No effect at all. Direct hit. No penetration. Reported So-Young. Around them, the other human ships opened fire. Laser beams lanced through space, striking the alien hulls with enough energy to vaporize a city block. The beams simply vanished into the crystal surfaces like water soaking into sand. Plasma torpedoes, miniature suns in magnetic bottles, exploded against the alien ships. The temperatures reached millions of degrees. The crystal armor absorbed the heat and light without even changing color. Their hull temperature isn't even rising, Dr. Minho reported in amazement. The armor is converting all incoming energy into some other form. Da-Yun watched the tactical display as 43 human ships poured everything they had into the alien fleet. Railgun slugs, laser beams, particle cannons, fusion missiles, kinetic kill vehicles, the most powerful weapons humanity had ever built. Nothing worked. "Captain," So-Young called out. "The alien ships are returning fire." The first Corvani weapon looked like a beam of liquid light. It touched the human destroyer Guangzhou's sword and the ship simply disappeared. No explosion, no debris. One moment it was there, the next moment it was gone. "Dear God," whispered Sung-Ho. More beams lashed out from the alien fleet. The cruiser Daegu's shield took a hit and broke apart like a toy. The frigate Busan's Hope tried to dodge, but the alien beam tracked its movement perfectly. Another ship erased from existence. "Evasive maneuvers," Da-Un shouted. "All ships scatter." The Incheon's pride rolled and dove, its engines straining to change direction. Around them, the surviving human ships fled in all directions. The Corvani weapons reached out like the fingers of death, touching ship after ship. But something strange was happening. Da-Yun noticed it first on the sensor readings. "So-Young, are you getting resonance patterns from their armor?" The tactical officer checked her instruments. "Yes, Captain. Every time we hit them, the crystal structure vibrates at specific frequencies. The patterns are complex, but they're consistent." Dr. Minho was hunched over his science station, fingers flying over the controls. "Captain, I'm detecting harmonic responses in the alien hull materials. Each weapon type creates a different resonance signature." "What does that mean?" "It means the armor isn't just absorbing our weapons, it's analyzing them. The crystal structure changes to match the frequency of each attack, but that process creates vibrations, like striking a tuning fork." Da-Yun felt a spark of hope. "Can we use those vibrations somehow?" "I don't know yet, but I'm recording everything." The battle was turning into a massacre. Half the human fleet was already gone, and the aliens hadn't even been scratched. But the surviving ships were gathering data. Sensor readings, energy signatures, harmonic analyses, resonance patterns. "Captain," Weapons Officer Ji-Hoon called from his station. "I'm seeing microfractures in the alien armor where multiple weapons hit the same spot." "Fractures?" "Tiny ones. They heal almost instantly, but they're there. The armor can adapt to one type of weapon easily, but when hit by several different weapons at once, it takes longer to adjust." Da-Yun leaned forward. "How much longer?" "Milliseconds. But that might be enough for something." The Corvani ships were advancing now, their weapons carving through the human formation like a scythe through wheat. The Soul's Fury exploded in a ball of plasma. The Olsen's Revenge broke in half, its crew compartments venting atmosphere and bodies into space. "All remaining ships, fall back to Rally Point Beta," Da-Un ordered. "Continue recording all sensor data." As the Inchin's pride retreated with the surviving human vessels, Da-Un studied the readings from their attack. 43 ships had been reduced to 18. They had inflicted no damage on the enemy. By any measure, it had been a complete defeat. But they had learned something important. The alien armor was not perfect. It could adapt to any single weapon, but multiple different weapons at once caused stress in the crystal matrix. microscopic fractures that lasted only milliseconds. Sung-Ho, transmit all combat data to Luna Command, she ordered. Priority Alpha. Encryption. Transmitting now, Captain. Dayun looked back at the alien fleet, which was reforming into attack formation. Soon they would continue toward Earth, confident in their invincibility. They had reason to be confident. Their armor had stopped humanity's best weapons without effort. But humans were good at learning from failure. They were good at finding patterns in chaos. And they were very good at turning small advantages into big victories. The first battle was over. Humanity had lost. But the war had just begun. Set course for Luna Station, Daun commanded. Best speed. As they fled toward the moon, she wondered what Earth scientists would make of the data they had gathered. The aliens thought they were invincible. Maybe they were right, or maybe they were about to learn that humans never gave up. General Wu Jin stood in the deep underground bunkers beneath Luna City, looking at screens filled with data from the first battle. Around him, Earth's best military minds worked frantically to find something, anything, that could stop the Corvani fleet. The numbers were not good. 25 ships lost, 8,000 people dead, 0 damage inflicted on the enemy. Show me the resonance data again, he ordered. Dr. Yunji touched her control pad, and holographic displays filled the air above the conference table. Complex wave patterns danced in 3 dimensions, showing how the alien armor had responded to human weapons. Each time we hit their ships, the crystal armor vibrated at specific frequencies, she explained. But here's the interesting part. The vibrations changed each time. The armor was literally retuning itself to defend against our weapons. Colonel Kyung-soo leaned forward. So it learns. We knew that already. Yes, but learning takes time. Dr. Yunji continued. Look at these micro-measurements. When hit by a single weapon type, the armor adapts in 0.003 seconds. But when hit by multiple different weapons simultaneously, adaptation takes 0.021 seconds. That's still faster than we can blink, muttered Major Haewon. But it's not instantaneous, General Wu Jin said thoughtfully. Dr. Yunji, what happens during those milliseconds when the armor is trying to adapt? The scientist manipulated the holographic display, zooming in on specific data points. The crystal structure becomes unstable. It creates internal stress fractures while trying to adjust to multiple threat types. The fractures heal quickly, but for a brief moment, the armor is actually weaker than normal. In the corner of the room, a man cleared his throat. Everyone turned to look at Young-soo, a composer and physicist who had been brought in to analyze the harmonic patterns in the alien armor. I think you're all missing something important, Young-soo said quietly. General Wu Jin gestured for him to continue. Young-soo stood and walked to the holographic display. His hands moved through the wave patterns like a conductor directing an orchestra. This isn't just random vibration, this is music. Music? Colonel Kyung-soo sounded skeptical. Complex harmonics. The alien armor doesn't just defend against weapons. It sings. Each attack creates notes and chords in the crystal structure. When the armor adapts, it's essentially changing key to harmonize with the incoming weapon frequency. Dr. Eunji stared at the data with new eyes. He's right. The resonance patterns follow harmonic progressions. The crystal organisms are creating music as they defend themselves. Young-soo nodded excitedly. And if it's music, we can disrupt it. Not by playing the same song louder, but by changing the key so fast that the armor can't keep up. Explain, General Wu Jin ordered. Imagine trying to sing along with a song that changes key every few seconds, Young-soo said. Your voice would crack. You'd lose the melody. Eventually, you'd stop trying to harmonize and just make noise. Dr. Yunji was already running calculations on her tablet. If we could create weapons that constantly shift frequency instead of maintaining steady wavelengths, the armor would try to adapt, but before it could finish adjusting to one frequency, we'd hit it with a completely different one. General Wu Jin finished. For the first time since the battle, people in the room looked hopeful. Can we build such weapons? Asked Colonel Kyung-soo. Dr. Minho, who had survived the first battle aboard Captain Daeun's ship, stepped forward. We'd need to modify our entire weapons array. Instead of firing steady laser beams, we'd fire beams that change wavelength thousands of times per second. Instead of solid railgun slugs, we'd fire projectiles that vibrate at shifting frequencies. How long would that take? General Wu Jin asked. With every factory on Earth working around the clock? 6 weeks? We don't have 6 weeks. The aliens will reach Earth in 4 days. The room fell silent. They had found a possible solution, but not enough time to implement it. Captain Seok Jin spoke from the back of the room. What if we don't try to refit the entire fleet? What if we modify just a few ships with prototype weapons? A few ships against their entire fleet? Major Hai Wan shook her head. Suicide. Maybe, Seok Jin admitted. But if the theory is correct, we only need to prove it works. Once we crack their armor, even conventional weapons should be able to damage them. General Wu Jin studied the tactical displays showing the Corvani fleet's approach. The aliens were taking their time, confident in their victory. They had stopped at the asteroid belt to strip mine resources, building more ships for their invasion. Dr. Yunji, can you design frequency-shifting weapons in 72 hours? I can try. Young-Soo, I need you to compose the most chaotic, unpredictable harmonic sequence you can imagine. Something that changes key and tempo constantly. Young-Soo grinned. I've been working on exactly that kind of piece for years. My critics called it musical madness. Now it might save humanity. Captain Seok Jin, choose your fastest, most maneuverable ship. You'll be testing the prototype weapons. Yes, sir. General Wu Jin looked around the room at the faces of Earth's defenders. Scientists and soldiers, artists and engineers, all united by the same desperate hope. People, we're about to attempt something that has never been tried before. We're going to turn music into a weapon. We're going to make the aliens' greatest strength become their greatest weakness. Over the next 3 days, Luna City became a hive of activity. Engineers worked without sleep, welding new weapon arrays onto Captain Seok Jin's ship, the Soul's Vengeance. Scientists programmed frequency generators that could shift wavelengths faster than the alien armor could adapt. Musicians and physicists collaborated on harmonic sequences that would drive the crystal organisms mad with confusion. Dr. Yunji barely left her laboratory. She watched endless recordings of the first battle, studying how the alien armor responded to each weapon type. Slowly, she began to understand the patterns. The crystal organisms aren't just defending, she explained to General Wu Jin during one of his visits. They're communicating. Each ship's armor talks to the others, sharing adaptation data. That's why their entire fleet becomes immune to a weapon type after just one ship encounters it. Can we disrupt that communication? Maybe. If we can make one ship's armor sing a different song than the others, it might cause harmonic interference across their whole fleet. Young-Soo had been working on what he called the Chaos Symphony, a mathematical sequence of frequency changes designed to be completely unpredictable. Human music follows patterns, he explained. Even when it sounds random, there are underlying structures. But this sequence has no structure at all. It's pure mathematical chaos set to harmonic frequencies. As the deadline approached, Captain Seok Jin ran final tests on his modified weapons. The frequency generators hummed with power, ready to sing their chaotic song. The weapon systems looked nothing like traditional human armaments. They were more like giant musical instruments than tools of war. General, Dr. Yunji reported on the morning of the expected battle. We're as ready as we'll ever be. The weapons will work, in theory, but we'll only get one chance. Once the aliens figure out what we're doing, they'll adapt. General Wu Jin nodded gravely. Captain Seok Jin, you understand the mission? Yes, sir. Get close enough to their fleet to test the weapons. If they work, transmit the data to the rest of our forces. If they don't work, he shrugged. At least we'll die, knowing we tried something new. The entire human race is counting on you. No pressure at all, Seok Jin replied with a grim smile. As the Soul's Vengeance prepared to depart Luna Station, Young-Soo handed Captain Seok Jin a small device. What's this? A music player. If you're going to die fighting to the sound of chaos, you might as well have something beautiful to listen to afterward. Captain Seok Jin pocked the device and saluted. See you on the other side. The modified ship launched toward the approaching Corvani fleet, its experimental weapons ready to test humanity's desperate theory. Behind it, the rest of Earth's forces waited to see if music could succeed where conventional warfare had failed. The second battle for Earth was about to begin. Captain Seok-jin sat in the command chair of the Soul's Vengeance, watching the Corvani fleet grow larger on his screen. His ship looked like a porcupine now, covered with the strange new weapons Dr. Yoonji's team had built. Instead of normal gun turrets, his ship carried arrays of crystal emitters, frequency generators, and harmonic projectors. All stations report ready, called Lieutenant Sung-min from the tactical station. Dr. Yuna, are your instruments recording? Seok-jin asked the science officer. Every sensor we have is active, Captain. We'll capture data on everything that happens. Seok-jin nodded. Win or lose, Earth's scientists needed to know if their theory worked. Across space, Commander Taemin stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking at the single human ship approaching his fleet. After the easy victory in the first battle, he had expected the humans to surrender. Instead, one small ship was coming toward them. Foolish creatures, Admiral Hyunwoo said beside him. Do they think one ship can succeed where 43 failed? Perhaps. It carries a surrender offer, suggested Lieutenant Hyejin. Or a bomb, added Taemin. Scan it carefully. The Corvani sensors studied the approaching human vessel. It was smaller than their destroyers but larger than their fighters. Most interesting were the strange weapons it carried. Instead of the crude railguns and laser cannons they had seen before, this ship was covered with devices that looked almost decorative. Sir, their weapon signatures are unlike anything in our database, reported sensor operator Dal Ho. New weapons? Taemin was mildly interested. What type? Unknown. They appear to be some form of energy projector, but the frequency patterns are strange. On the Soul's Vengeance, Captain Seok-jin watched his rangefinder count down. 5,000 kilometers. 4,000. 3,000. Captain, we're getting close to their effective weapons range, warned Sung-min. Hold course. We need to be close enough for the frequency weapons to work properly. 2,000 kilometers. 1,000. Sir, the alien ships are powering up their main weapons, Dr. Yoon-ah reported. Fire the moment we enter optimal range, Seok-jin ordered. At 800 kilometers, the Soul's Vengeance opened fire with its new weapons. But these were not the violent explosions of conventional warfare. Instead, invisible waves of pure frequency washed over the Corvani ships. The crystalline armor began to sing. Commander Taemin felt the vibrations through the deck of his ship. At first it was pleasant, like standing inside a giant musical instrument. The living armor was responding to the human weapons by creating beautiful harmonic tones. Then the tones began to change. The human weapons were not firing steady frequencies like normal energy weapons. Instead, they shifted constantly, from high to low, from simple to complex, from major keys to minor keys, and back again. The crystalline armor tried to adapt, changing its structure to match each new frequency. But before it could finish adapting, to one tone, another completely different frequency hit it. What is happening? Admiral Hyunwoo asked as the ship shuddered. The beautiful music was becoming discordant. Instead of harmonious tones, the armor was producing clashing notes, off-key, melodies and chaotic noise. The crystal organisms were trying to sing along with the human weapons, but the song kept changing too fast for them to follow. On the Soul's Vengeance, Dr. Yoon-ah watched her instruments with growing excitement. Captain, it's working. The alien armor is showing stress fractures across the entire hull. The Corvani ships were still singing, but now it sounded like a choir where every member was trying to sing a different song. The crystalline armor began to glow brighter as internal stresses built up. Hairline cracks appeared across the hull. Surfaces. Impossible, whispered Taemin. He had seen the living armor adapt to every weapon in the known galaxy. Energy beams, particle cannons, quantum torpedoes, gravity weapons. Nothing could penetrate the crystal matrix once it had learned to defend against it. But these human weapons were not trying to penetrate the armor. They were trying to drive it insane. The frequency generators on the human ship pumped out Young-Su's Chaos Symphony, a mathematical sequence of tones designed to have no pattern at all. Every time the armor tried to predict the next frequency, it guessed wrong. Every time it tried to harmonize with the music, the key changed. "Sir, hull integrity is dropping," reported Dalho from the sensor station. Commander Taemin looked at his tactical display in disbelief. His ship's armor was failing, not from damage but from confusion. The crystal organisms were working so hard to adapt to the constantly changing frequencies that they were tearing themselves apart. "All ships, focus fire on the human vessel," he ordered. But as the Corvani weapons charged up, something unexpected happened. The stressed armor on Taimin's ship began to affect the neighboring vessels. The crystalline hulls of the Corvani fleet were designed to communicate with each other, sharing adaptation data instantly across the entire formation. Now, they were sharing chaos instead of information. The discordant vibrations spread from ship to ship like a virus. Each vessel's armor tried to harmonize with its neighbors, but the neighbors were all singing different, impossible songs. The entire fleet began to resonate with mathematical madness. Captain Seok Jin watched in amazement as the massive alien ships began to crack open like eggs. The beautiful crystalline surfaces split along stress lines, revealing the metal framework underneath. Atmosphere and fluids vented into space as hull breaches appeared across the enemy formation. "Dr. Yuna, are you getting all of this?" "Every detail, Captain. The frequency weapons are causing harmonic resonance cascade throughout their fleet. Each ship's armor is trying to adapt to a different chaos pattern, and the interference is destroying their structural integrity." The largest Corvani ship, Commander Taimin's flagship, was breaking apart. Sections of crystalline armor peeled away like flower petals, spinning off into space. The organic crystal matrix, driven beyond its ability to adapt, was simply giving up and dissolving. "Sungmin, transmit all combat data to Earth Command," Seokjin ordered. "Tell them the weapons work. Tell them to retrofit every ship in the fleet with frequency generators." "Transmitting now, Captain." But their celebration was premature. As Commander Taemin's flagship came apart around him, he managed to send one final order to his remaining ships. "All vessels, Emergency Protocol 7. Shut down armor communication systems. Operate in isolation mode." Across the Corvani fleet, the surviving ships cut their connections to each other. The chaos virus stopped spreading, but the damage was already done. Over half the alien vessels were either destroyed or crippled. The Soul's vengeance continued, firing its frequency weapons at the surviving ships. But now each vessel had to be targeted individually. Without the armor communication network, the chaos patterns could not jump from ship to ship. "Captain, the remaining alien ships are adapting," Dr. Yuna reported. "Their armor is learning to ignore our frequency weapons." "How long do we have?" "Maybe 10 minutes before they figure out how to defend against the chaos patterns." Seokjin nodded grimly. 10 minutes to prove that humanity could hurt the supposedly invincible Corvani Empire. 10 minutes to change the course of the war. Continue firing. Make every second count. As the battle raged, both sides learned important lessons. The Corvani discovered that their greatest strength, the adaptive armor that had made them invincible, could become their greatest weakness when faced with weapons designed to exploit its very nature. Humanity learned that sometimes the best way to fight a superior enemy was not to match their strength, but to turn that strength against them. The second battle for Earth was far from over, but for the first time since the war began, human ships were winning. 3 weeks after the battle, Commander Taemin sat in a chair aboard the human ship Busan Defiant. His flagship was gone, destroyed by weapons that should not have existed. Half his fleet floated as debris around Earth's outer planets. The other half had retreated to Corvani space, carrying news of an impossible defeat. Captain Jinhei entered the room where Taimin was being held. She carried a tray with food and a cup of the bitter drink humans called coffee. Despite being his captor, she had treated him with respect. "The war is over," she announced, sitting across from him at the small table. Taimin looked up from the fragments of crystalline armor he had been studying. Pieces of his ship's hull, once beautiful and invincible, now looked like broken glass. Your empire has agreed to peace negotiations, Ginny continued. Your remaining fleets have withdrawn from human space. Because of these, Taemin said, touching one of the crystal fragments. Our perfect armor, 3,000 years of development, and you destroyed it with music. Jin'e nodded. Dr. Yoonji wants to interview you about how the armor works. She says understanding it better might help both our species. Why would you want to help us? We came to conquer your world. Because the armor technology could be useful for peaceful purposes. Medical applications, construction, space exploration. Your people developed something amazing. We just showed that nothing is perfect. Taemin picked up one of the larger crystal fragments. Even broken, it was beautiful. The organic crystal caught the light and reflected it in rainbow patterns. We were so proud of this, he said quietly. For 3 millennia, no weapon could penetrate it. We thought it made us gods. What made you gods was the same thing that made you vulnerable, Jin'e replied. The armor was too good at learning, too eager to adapt. When we gave it something impossible to learn, it tried anyway. Lieutenant Kyung-ho entered the room and saluted Captain Jin'e. Ma'am, the prisoner exchange has been approved. Commander Taemin will be returned to Corvani space tomorrow. Ginny turned back to Taemin. You're free to go, but I want you to understand something first. This war didn't end because humans are stronger than Corvani. It ended because we approach problems differently. How so? Your people found the perfect solution and trusted in it completely. Humans don't believe in perfect solutions. We believe everything can be improved, changed, or broken. That's why we never stopped looking for weaknesses in your armor. Taemin considered her words. Your weapons should not have worked. The living armor had faced every type of energy beam, every form of particle weapon, every kind of projectile. It had learned to defend against them all. But it had never faced weapons designed not to destroy but to confuse, Jin'e explained. Your armor was like a student trying to learn a subject. We became teachers who kept changing the lesson before the student could understand it. Dr. Yuna entered the room, carrying a tablet computer. She had been studying the armor fragments for weeks, trying to understand how the organic crystals worked. Captain, I think Commander Taemin should see this, she said. The tablet screen showed a holographic model of the crystalline armor structure. As they watched, the model demonstrated how the armor responded to different weapon types, adapting its molecular structure to defend against each attack. Fascinating, Dr. Yuna continued. The armor is actually a symbiotic organism. It bonds with the ship's hull and becomes part of the vessel's defense system. When attacked, it communicates with similar organisms throughout the fleet, sharing adaptation data instantly. That communication network was your weakness, Ginny added. When we confused one ship's armor, the confusion spread to all the others. Taemin watched the holographic model with sad eyes. We spent centuries perfecting that communication system. We thought it made our fleets invincible. It did, against conventional weapons, Dr. Yuna said. But humans are not very conventional. Through the viewport, Taemin could see Earth floating in space. Such a small blue world. Hard to believe it had brought down the mighty Corvani Empire. What will happen to my people? He asked. That depends on your government, Captain Jin'e replied. Earth is willing to share our frequency weapon technology with other species threatened by future aggressors. We're also willing to help modify your armor to defend against chaos frequency attacks. You would help us improve the very armor you defeated? Defense technology should be used for protection, not conquest. If your people want to use the living armor to protect your worlds, we have no problem with that. But if you use it to attack innocent species, she gestured toward the floating debris that had once been Corvani warships. Lieutenant Kyung-ho spoke up. Sir, there's something else. Our deep space monitors detected other alien fleets heading toward Corvani territory. 3 different species, all carrying frequency weapon systems. Taemin's blood ran cold. You shared the weapon designs with species you had conquered, Ginny confirmed. Apparently, a lot of races want revenge on the Corvani Empire. Your perfect armor made you very unpopular. The irony was not lost on Taemin. The Corvani had conquered nearly 1,000 worlds, confident that their living armor made them untouchable. Now that humans had shown how to defeat the armor, every former victim wanted to settle old scores. My people will need protection, Taemin realized. Earth is prepared to offer defensive assistance, Captain Jinne said, but only if Corvani fleets withdraw from all conquered territories and release all enslaved populations. The Council will never agree to that. We have built our entire civilization on conquered resources and slave labor. Then you'll have to build a new civilization, one based on cooperation instead of conquest. Over the next several hours, Commander Taemin was briefed on the terms of the peace treaty. The Corvani Empire would return all conquered worlds to their original inhabitants. Slave populations would be freed and given transport to new homes. Corvani military fleets would be reduced to defensive forces only. In exchange, Earth would provide frequency weapon technology to help defend Corvani space against revenge attacks from their former victims. Why are you being so generous? Taemin asked as he prepared to leave. We came to destroy your world. Captain Jinne smiled sadly. Because humans understand something your people forgot. The strongest armor isn't made of crystal or metal. It's made of friendship and trust. You can't conquer your way to safety. You can only cooperate your way there. As Taemin's transport ship prepared to depart for Corvani space, Dr. Yuna handed him a data pad. What is this? Technical specifications for modifying your armor against frequency attacks. A gift from humanity to your people. Why? Because no species deserves to be wiped out, even former enemies. Your armor technology is beautiful. Use it to protect, not to conquer. Commander Taemin looked back at Earth one final time as his ship jumped to hyperspace. The small blue world had taught his empire a lesson they would never forget. They had trusted their strongest armor, believing it made them invincible. Humanity had shown them that true strength came not from perfect defenses, but from the willingness to keep learning, keep adapting, and keep trying new approaches when old ones failed. The Corvani Empire was finished, but maybe, with human help, the Corvani people could build something better. 6 months later, news reached Earth that the Corvani had successfully defended their home world against 3 different invasion fleets. The living armor, modified with anti-frequency defenses, had held against the revenge attacks. But more importantly, Corvani ships were now being seen throughout the galaxy, carrying supplies to refugee worlds and providing escort services for peaceful traders. The former conquerors had become protectors. Captain Jinne smiled when she heard the report. Sometimes the best way to defeat an enemy was to help them become something better. The galaxy was a safer place now that everyone knew armor could be shattered. But it was becoming a better place now that former enemies were learning to work together. Humanity had won more than just a war. They had won a chance to build a future where strength came from unity rather than domination. And in the end, that was the most human victory of all.